The former US Secretary of State Mike Pompeo has given his clearest signal yet that he may run for president in 2024. Pompeo, who served as director of the CIA before moving to the State Department, was one of the few senior figures to remain loyal to President Trump until he left office in January of last year. Today, he celebrated the 4th of July with a wide-ranging conversation at the Policy Exchange think tank in London. I caught up with him afterwards and asked him first if he was concerned that Russia's recent gains were a sign that Putin's invasion of Ukraine is succeeding.
Yes, we want the Ukrainians to be able to have the tools and the weapon systems to defend their sovereignty. And this was a war of aggression by Vladimir Putin. And we collectively, the West, needs to provide the Ukrainian people with the tools and the weapon systems and the intelligence that they have asked for.
President Biden is sending more troops, more equipment. Is he right to do that?
We'll see if it really happens. It's one thing to talk about it and promise it. It's another thing to deliver it. Much of what he described was going to places like the United Kingdom and Spain, not helping the Ukrainians in the fight that they're engaged in today. That's the point of attack today. That's the place that these tools are actually needed.
Let me ask you about the situation in the United States. We've had some devastating testimonies into the January the 6th riots at the Capitol, in particular about President Trump's role. Is it correct that you were so concerned about that you considered discussing ways of actually removing him from office because you thought he wasn't doing enough to stop potential violence?
Well, I've seen the hearings. These are partisan affairs. Speaker Pelosi wouldn't permit the opposition to have the members on the committee that they had asked to have. That is unheard of in the American political process. So we'll see how this continues to play out. We know that there were elements of our election that were a mess. We had rules changed in Pennsylvania and Georgia. We had ballots that were being moved around in ways that we hadn't had. Part of this was because of COVID. Rules were changing, and it created enormous uncertainty for the American people. And we have an obligation as leaders, state by state, to get the elections right as we move forward and to do the things we can to make sure that we have confidence in our elections. When we don't have confidence in our elections at home, this is a really bad thing for our republic.
How do you think, though, what we've learned about President Trump's role, there was talk of him actually trying to grab the wheel of his presidential limousine to get to the scene, how do you think that is going to feed into those very important elections coming up later this year? Is it going to damage the prospects of Republicans, particularly Republicans who are closely allied to President Trump?
We're going to have a very American election. This American election is going to be decided by people whose gas prices have gone through the roof, who can't afford to feed their children, who are suffering because the electricity in their home has tripled in price. Farmers in Kansas whose fertilizer is now 300% of the cost that it was just a year and a half ago when we were in office. I think the issues that are in front of the American people today are serious. These were policy choices that were made, and the American people are suffering because of it, and I am convinced they're going to respond to that in a way that says to the Democrats, you have it wrong. You have reduced the quality of my life. You've reduced the quality of my family's life, and we're not going to stand for it. So I think we're going to have an election where folks who are tied to President Biden, whose approval rating is in the high 30s or low 40s, I think they will come out in droves, not because they're Republican or Democrat, but because they're American, and we shouldn't have empty store shelves without baby formula, where we're having to import baby formula in America. And I think the American people can see that they have made a bollocks of this, and they're going to go do their best to try and fix it in November.
President Trump has clearly been very active in trying to ensure that candidates close to his view of politics are elected. Do you think he's going to run? And I have to just ask you, are you going to run?
Yeah. I do the same thing. I try to make candidates that share my views of the world get elected as well. This is deeply American. I think all political leaders do that. I've got an organization that I'm out campaigning all across America for candidates that I believe take the country in the right direction, trying to help them be successful, both in their primaries and then again in November. And President Trump's been out doing the same thing. We'll see what happens in 2024. The truth is, I don't think any of us know what any of us are going to do. I've made clear I'm doing the things one would do to get ready to run for president. I'll be in Iowa this summer. I'll be in New Hampshire in the fall. I'll be in South Carolina next week, states that candidates go to. But my wife and I will make our decision based on whether we think we're the the right people for this moment, and we'll do that sometime well after this coming election.
So you are actively considering running?
If we believe we're the right person to lead America forward, we will absolutely get in the race. My focus, my energy, all of my time today is helping candidates this coming November. So we have 3.5 months left before folks will start voting in America, and I am laser focused on helping good candidates win so we can get America headed back in the right direction. And then we'll start out 2024.
Well, that was Mike Pompeo speaking to me just a little earlier. If we believe that we're the right people to take the country forward, we will absolutely get in the race, he told me.